So now that Damon's on the boat, we're going to get stuck into our DC wiring. It's time to power Brupeg up. Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below. One of the challenges that we have with this box is it's incredibly tight, and if you look in here, our positive terminals are quite close to the box. The box is earthed and these positives have to stay away from this piece of aluminium. Now down the back you can see the negative terminals there. They are much closer, but at the same time it's less of a challenge if they hit the box compared to if the positives hit the box. Now what we have to do is secure the battery so that there's no way they can move so that ever happens. So we're going to put a stopper at the back to stop the batteries being able to physically move back. They're pulled right to the front of the box. You can see here there's not a lot of space at the front, which is fine. And the clamps are working, but we need a little bit of rejigging, so we're going to put some stoppers in between each battery here to stop the batteries from being able to go sideways. So some minor modifications to make the box work, but we'll make it work. So the batteries are out, box is now coming out, we're putting the cable glands in. We're going to add a stopper at the back and the little blocks at the front, so that locks all the batteries up. And while that's happening, we're going to start working on the cabling for around on the positive side here. Okay, and rock it straight down onto me. Yep, that's it. Alright. Right, we have our cable gland location. So negatives all tucked up on that side, positives tucked up there and there. They're in the most awkward spot to drill, so I have to drill them from the inside. So I'm going to pop a center hole through all of them, which allows me then to come onto the outside and drill them properly. So let's get into it. So a quick recap, we need to have a sealed gas type box for these lithium batteries so that in the rare event that there's an emergency and they off gas, they can be vented to the outside of the boat and not to the interior of the boat. And because we're familiar with metal, we decided to build from aluminium rather than something like plywood or plastic. So we have our holes drilled for the cable glands. Through in the battery end of the boat, we're working on cables. So positive cables are starting to go in. Now these all have to be equal length, which is causing a few headaches in order to make it neat, because both of us are a bit anal when it comes to OCD cable layout, and we're freaking out because we can't get them perfect because of this stupid equal length thing. We can't. Yeah. So
they'll be perfectly the same length.
Yeah.
And work perfectly perfect.
Yeah.
They're just not gonna be.
They don't pass the OCD test. Yeah. So we're really sorry, internet. We apologise now. Time for a quick feed. I need to make some battery stops. So basically something that stops the battery from going further back. Now at the top it's pretty easy because it's a flat surface. So I can just essentially pot rivet a piece of this 1-inch box section across the back at the right depth, and that stops the batteries from being able to travel any further back. At the bottom it's a bit harder because these pieces of box sections sit on top of the side piece, if that makes sense. So I can't just stick another piece on top. I actually have to stick at least 2 pieces on top. So that's what I'm doing. I'm making this. I'm going to cut this here, cut that there, and that's going to give me 2 standoffs that can be pot riveted to the box, and then I'm going to make a single piece here, which is going to be welded to these guys here, which lifts the whole thing up another 25mm. So sounds a bit convoluted. Let's cut it, weld it, and then pot rivet it in, and you'll get why I'm doing it that way. Over in the battery room, first cables, getting big old crimp going on. So these are the positives going from the isolators, the battery isolators on the wall, across to the Victron power in over here, which is essentially just a big bus bar. But they are the ones that have to be equal length, and he's got a cable tray running along there now, so they're able to zip up and be nice and neat. Look at this progress. Down the back there, they're looking spiffing. So the plan is basically to get these lugged up now. We've figured out lengths, and then we're going to figure out, we'll put the box and everything back in, then we'll figure out what our negative length. Yeah, do the hard part in a minute. Yeah. We'll remove all of the working room and then we'll try and do the work.
This is the confidence building part.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all good. And then we'll put that in and go, oh.
I have welded up our little holder thing. So what I need to do is actually trim these back a bit further because I can't get a bolt or a socket easily into these ends. So I'm going to trim that off now. I just wanted to weld it all up first, but I'll do that now, and then yeah, we're good to go and start getting this back into the box. Up the front, Jess is working on the next edit as well as our next first project.
Yeah, there's a bit going on.
Battery in, here's my straight edge. That's how much clearance we're going to have on the front.
Perfect.
You happy with that?
I'm very happy with that, looks good.
Alright, lovely. And that's it fitted. That is the mount sitting in place, so you can kind of see at the back there, I'll see if I can come back, you've got maybe I don't know, 80 to 100 mil behind the battery for cables and things like that to exit the box. And that's the top one made. Now some people have legitimately brought up a concern that they're nervous about these threads causing chafage and things like that. A lot of the comments seem to focus on the batteries chafing, but what we're actually concerned with, the batteries are not going to move once we've done all the bolting down and all that sort of carry on. There's just no way they're going to move. And if they are moving, we've done something else wrong, and this is the least of the concern. What the issue that we're wondering about, cables have to pass through some of these areas. So we're going to be putting heat shrink over top of everything so that it's double insulated cable, and with this it sort of becomes triple insulated when it goes past these threaded rods. So that's our solution, is to cover all of the threads up with a nice silky smooth heat shrink on the outside. So they're on, give them a bit of a zap up. A recent comment, somebody mentioned, how are we going to get to the nuts at the top of these guys to do them up when the batteries are in? It's easy enough to get to the bottom ones because you can put the batteries in the bottom first, do those nuts up, and then you deal with the top ones. However, you can't get to the top ones when the batteries are in. So, we've got 4 holes marked up. We've got some bungs. We've cut the little tag things off that hold it into the hull of a dinghy or whatever. We're going to use these bungs, basically drill, put these across like so. We can get a socket in, so once these are opened up, one-handed, let's see if we can do that. So once that opens up, you've got that much room, you can put a socket and an extension down, do them up, and you're good to go.
But, okay. We went back to using these,
yep.
And you and I talked on the phone.
Yeah.
We couldn't get DIN rails to bridge them.
Yep.
What were we going to do? We're just going to loop?
Oh, I left that specifically up to my DC electrician to figure out.
Fuck off you. You did not. What did we...
Half in the back.
Yeah.
What did we say we were going to do there?
I think we pushed that problem down the road and we hoped that it would disappear, but it seems like it hasn't. I don't know,
No,
it's weird.
Because remember we went to the surface mount ones and then that got ugly, and then
yeah.
Somehow I remember we arrived back at, no, we'll use these.
Yeah, and then I don't think we did any more thinking about it.
Okay, good. That's tomorrow Damon's problem.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be happy.
There we go, with them installed. We're waiting on one to arrive from the channery, but we've got basically the 3 of 4 installed. You can see we've got a bit of goop underneath them, a bit of sicka underneath them. But when we crack these open, huzzah, you can see that pin really easily accessible. So they're all the same. Another pin down there, where are we? There it is, really easily accessible. So that keeps it gas tight, allows us full access to it, and then you can also see acetone kills our lovely sticker. If this box was say 5 or 10 millimeters bigger in any dimension, we literally wouldn't be able to get it through this hallway up into the wheelhouse and down where it needs to sit. With millimeters to spare. While the box is in but not bolted, we're going to do cable glands.
We can do that. Well, you know, you spent more time in there than me, so you're better equipped for the job.
Yep.
You right?
Yep.
Tightening.
Oh, these ones are going to be fun.
Well, they're going to be worse.
Yep, they are.
That was your fastest one yet?
The box is back in place, getting screwed down to the ground. The vent's in, all of the cable glands are in. There's one cable gland to go and one bung right over the very far side to go. Waiting for that to be on order, and we've lost the nut for one of the cable glands, so as soon as we find that, we'll put the last one in. We're working on here, and the whole boat is like lamb wafting through the boat. It's really hard to focus.
Because of the smell?
Yeah, the smell.
You guys getting hungry?
Yeah. The battery cable's going in. This is the big 95mm square cable. You can see that there. It's pretty chunky. So what we need to do over in the battery box is figure out which cable is the longest cable, because every cable has to be the same size. So the longest cable determines the size of all of the cables, or the length of all of the cables. Our negative cables are coming out on this side, and our positive cables are coming around the back. So the longest negative is going to be the top far battery, and that sort of comes along down and then over to the BMS, or sorry, the bus bars over on this side. The positive is going to be one of the ones on this side, either the top or bottom. but they're going to be pretty similar length to each other because they're going to go out and sort of follow themselves around to those fuses on the side. So just a bit of faffing around initially to figure out which cable length does what. So we set up a dummy battery with a negative cable connected to it, and we put it in each of the 4 corners of the box. This allowed us to essentially check our measurements to make sure that we're going to be absolutely spot on with cable length.
The one on your side closest, the cable's actually going to have to point that way in order to curl around and go back out the gland. You're going to get a nice leg shot. Like hairy leg. Alright, so you're in front. So now,
that's our stop there.
you've got to tell me how much I can pull back, if any.
That's pretty... It's pretty tidy.
That's pretty good.
Alright, easy done. We should have a tighter box next time.
Easy done. Lucky we're friends.
So each cable gets 2 lugs, one at each end. So you strip the insulation off, pull that out, and you're left with the tinned conductor. Slide the lug on, then you crimp it. You can use a hydraulic crimp, or in this case just a mechanical crimp. And because it's a relatively small surface area that's crimped, we like to do 2, and you end up with 2 crimps like that. Slide a bit of red heat shrink for positive, black heat shrink for negative. And you want to always try and get that little hole there, you want to try and cover that up with your heat shrink so that you end up with something like that, and it seals it off from any moisture or water getting into it. And you can see here, you can see a very fine bead of glue around there. This is glue, resin infused. It's basically hot glue, but it's resin infused heat shrink. So not only does it shrink down, but it also glues itself to everything. So there's no way moisture can get inside the cable. So when you're using the resin infused heat shrink, you need to have quite a powerful heat gun. This thing will do up to 600 degrees. You can use a flame, but some of the low powered ones just won't cut it. So with dozens of cables to make for these batteries to be connected to the Victron BMS, it's time to just crack on, smash out some cables. Now that those cables are made, we're able to start loading the batteries into the bottom row of the box. Then bring those cables that we've just created down into the battery room, start wiring them up to the batteries, bring the cables across to the fuses and isolators located on the wall behind Damon. So these are our stainless hold down clamps. We're going to put heat shrink on them and in between where the batteries actually sit, so that A, it looks cool because that's one of the main factors here, but also it provides a little bit more chafe resistance. Look at that. Yeah, the black one goes to the top.
Why, thank you, sir.
Yeah, doesn't that just look smashing?
So easy when you said black one to the top.
Look at that.
Gosh darn beautiful. Alright, so that's 3 negatives on and tight, and cable gland's done up, and the ends of the wires are labelled.
Right.
Let's go.
Incoming.
Now, which gland are we using where here? We're going to use...
Top gland for top fuse, wasn't it?
Correct. This is going to be a team effort.
Yeah.
And you get the raw end of the deal.
Yeah, yeah. Sweet as. So we've got our negatives basically bolted up to our power ins.
Once I hook these positives on, exactly half the battery bank will be connected.
Yep.
So I'll put those up there,
yep.
And because we're waiting on some cable, that's all we can do with these for the moment. They're secured, all the connections are tight, all of that's done. So I think the next thing will be running the double power and earths for both of the inverters.
Brilliant.
And when we've done that, that's like the big cable done. And so things will get easier and faster.
So while that's happening, I'm going to start zipping up these earths into the cable tray down here into a nice little pattern. First row of earths zip tied. They look lovely.
Insulators in there, that's done. So they'll just lay wherever they got to go.
Yep.
And then those other earths will just have to come behind, and then right at the end we can peg that with some ties somehow, however that.
Nice. So moving over to placing everything on this side so that we can work out where our inverter cable is going to go, we have to start placing some of the gear that we've got. So we've got a couple of 70 amp Orion 24 to 12 volt converters. We've got a battery protect. So this basically protects all of our 24 volt systems. We've got our DC to DC charge controller. This is for it to maintain our start batteries. This will eventually go once we move to air start. That's why we're only putting in a fairly low cost basic. There's no smarts in this charge controller. A lot of people have said don't worry about these, use something else. Probably absolutely right, but this will actually is going to be redundant as soon as we move to air start. We also have tiny glass fuses over the back there. There's a fuse block going in, so they're like half amp glass fuses and things for some of the various 12 volt systems that have to run. So yeah, have to fit that before we can fit the big switches, those big grey ones down there. You can maybe see that's for the inverters. Oh, and just there as well. So we're deep into the wiring and getting stuff mounted into this battery area. You can see there's sort of chaos and parts everywhere. There's a big roll of wire on the floor here. But we need to pack all of this up, put some floorboards on, because we need to actually move the boat. We're going from the berth where we're not allowed to do any work on it. We're going to go over to the work berth over the other side of the marina. So we've got 2 weeks over there. There's a fishing boat that's gone to sea. We've got 2 weeks at the work berth, which allows us to do a lot more work to the boat. So this is midway through putting in one of the switches, and it's taken us probably an hour to figure out how to get this to be right. There's been so much thought go into this, it's crazy. The trouble that we're having is we need a 120mm conductor, and we don't have 120, we have 70, so we're doing two 70s, which is how the system is designed, because it's too difficult to get 120mm, and it's like trying to bend tree trunks. So using the 270s, we've got a bit more flexibility, but it also makes it 10 times harder when you're trying to actually decide where things are going to go.
My automatic crimper, you're going to love this. All we do is we put it in there like that, and then you probably can't see anything. And then
press the button.
Yeah, and we say, crimp please. Ah, that's beautiful. And it does a great job. And then we go, crimp please. Ah, fantastic. Thank you.
As you can see, electricians work in a unique way. Right, cable tray, drilled and tapped, and that's just bolted down. So that's a stainless cable tray with stainless fastenings, countersunk, so they are pretty flush. They sink into these holes quite well. So that's going to deal with quite a few of the cables coming over to this and this. Now we just need to stick one on the wall here, like that. Right, so we're up to figuring out the alternator. We've got our two big alternator straps over there that's zip tied, and they've got to come up to these distributors here, but we have a little 12 volt battery down here. What we're going to do is do exactly that. We're going to stick the two cables on positive and negative so that we can get some juice flowing through them, and we've got this fancy little test light that glows red or green depending if you're touching positive or negative. That allows me to determine in the engine room which cable is which.
You should definitely buy one of those if you haven't got one. They're awesome. Just because sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
If you just got a bulb and it glows, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And if somebody's, I don't know, reverse polarity or something,
yeah,
worth its weight.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, go for it. Okay, so that's spiking into red, which is positive. So I'm just going to mark that. Give me 2 6. And then green for negative. Yeah, I'm done. Yep. Right, temporarily putting this cover on. You can see two cables coming out the bottom of it. They are the alternator cables. They're all plumbed up. That'll come off soon when we start doing the other bits, but for now, it's a bit stabby. You can sort of see all the bolts coming out of it. When you brush your shoulder up with haste, you notice it. So we're getting rid of that for now. We're now moving over to the inverters. We're going to start working on the 70mm. We're going to do the negatives, so we need two 70mm conduits per inverter for our negatives. So we'll get those done now. We are unfortunately only halfway there. So we're going to have two negatives and our two positives going into this inverter here. So inverter 1, they're snaking their way around and they're coming up over the back here. Right, the effort for this afternoon has been getting these guys here connected. So two 200 amp fuses, and they go through, the positives go through this isolator or switch to regular folk. And then we've got 4 runs of cable, so 2 negative, 2 positive, that come around this cable tray and head up into this inverter. So that's that inverter basically powered up. Now we're going to start working on this one here. It's 7 o'clock at night. and we are...
I'm still here! We're still here! I'm still in here!
So we're working on negatives for the inverter, the second inverter. We have inverter 1 hooked up. This is negatives for inverter 2 going in. So these are the cables running down here and then sort of along and out. Once they're in, then we can start the harder job, which is the positives. But let's get the negatives knocked over first.
We'll do that.
And then before we fall asleep, we'll hopefully get the positives done. It's getting tight. Starting to run out of room, which is, you know, a positive thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's getting tight. That's okay. It is what it is.
Right, the last of the positives going on the Victron gear.
For the first time.
Definitely not the second time that we've done this.
Definitely didn't. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Is without. Oh, there it is.
Where?
Underneath the cables. Follow the cables down on the cable tray. On the cable tray.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, tricky. It's like pickup sticks.
Yep.
Don't put it through the hole.
Yeah, because it's stainless. You're never going to magnet it out.
Yeah, you're never going to get that out of there.
Yep.
Perfect. Off again. Definitely not. Dun, 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 dun. Just got to get those things in. Oh, it's lovely.
Look at that.
It's lovely. Beautiful.
I think we're done. That's looking smashing in there. Look at that.
How does it look?
Cables everywhere.
It looks alright.
It does look alright.
Looks alright.
And the next morning.
12 volt stuff is.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, I mean, that's where you've run all of that too. So
Yeah,
I just think that should stay there because otherwise if we're going to move all of that,
yeah,
problem. But that changeover switch can be here somewhere. And then we can just run our 12 volt from the converters back to here.
Well, I suppose we have to decide where everything's going.
Yeah.
Fully, don't we?
So
Just in the process of trying to decide where the last bits go, and real estate's really tight, of course.
very, very tight.
So we're extending.
Yeah.
We've got creep.
Yeah, we're starting to run out of room in this battery box to fit everything in. So what Jess came up with the idea of putting it up in here. So we've got this cupboard here and we've got this cupboard here. Initially we thought, why don't we use that cupboard? But we worked so hard to empty this cupboard and put it all over here. I thought, we're not using this space over the back. So yeah, Jess's idea was basically to get it out of the box and put it somewhere, and this is our spot. So we've got this back wall, this side wall, we've got lots of cable tray, and then we've got down the bottom here, we've got really good access to get down into the battery box again.
So you guys are thinking in there rather than in
Yeah,
the front?
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
more
nice,
electrically
okay. Oh, cool.
sensible in here because we've
Yeah,
got
yeah. And you can run everything okay?
yeah, heaps of room. So we've run out of room in the battery box.
I
So,
know, which is not really a problem that we were thinking
no.
that we were going to have initially. But
So it came as a bit of a surprise to us. We thought we had enough room in the battery box to install everything, but once we got into the nitty gritty of it, the sheer scale and size of the system started to overwhelm the physical real estate that we had available, and we had to look for alternatives. A lot of thinking has gone into this part of the wall. So we've got our various charge controllers. We've got 3 of these 150/70s. We've got 2 of these little 120s that need to fit in here. Plus we've got fuse blocks and a bunch of other paraphernalia that goes with it. So what we're going to do is run a cable tray down there. We're going to have stack up 3 of the 150/70s across the top, and we're going to put the 120s along the bottom. But we'll have cable tray running along the middle and cable tray running along the bottom there, so that our cables coming out of the 150s can go straight onto tray. Our cables coming out of the 120s can go straight onto tray. And then what else we got down there? Buzz bars, fuses.
the input breakers to all the MPPTs
That's right.
for the inputs.
So they have to sort of sit roughly beside each one just to make it easy to mount, which is real estate challenge, and that's why we're starting to shift some of the gear out of this box and into the electrical box in the hallway.
Really? I see you.
That's our center hole. This is dedication when we're unclipping the old solar. He's down there is our solar cables. Maybe able to see them.
Somebody's built a boat around him. Well, there's the first thing that you did.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, I can see what I'm doing there. Keep going.
Yeah, you're clear. I'm just finding the other end. Hang on, hold. Just gotta find the other end of some shit. How the fuck do you loop back into the other one?
Yeah, so I've got a red here.
That corresponds to rear 2. So as soon as you got it through the hole, we need to kind of link them.
Once we get all these in the box, you and I are going to go through them.
All right, let's do that.
And this one, is that solar as well?
Yep. Paul, you're just going through some, yep. Bit of tape. Yep.
Okay. And I'll cut these and let's feed them all in that beautiful hole there. If you just rock that back a bit, do you want to deal with that right this minute? Because that's quite wild. Figure. Sure. Oh, if we got a something, we could just flick it out.
Yeah.
Any type of long thing. Broom. Yeah, broom or something.
Yeah, long piece.
I need a something, Jess.
Long something.
A long walking stick. Find anything of that variety would be sweet. Or and I'll just flick it this way and then slide this back in. Yeah.
Throw it back more?
Yep. I don't know where it actually sits exactly. Okay, cool. I can hook that back up. Breaker. Work that out.
It's only 3 mil, but you know.
I'm glad I didn't volunteer to drill that hole. Digging that hole would take even longer. You could lubricate it with your sweat.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Metal done with cutting oil. There we go. Hole into the battery box done. So I need to go around and chamfer this edge so there's no sharp bits. We need to sand up and smooth up that plywood so there's no daggy bits in there like that. And then you can see up here where we've got no plywood, we're able to put the split conduit around it. Bit hard to do that over here, so we're going to have to come up with a different solution. Galvanic isolator's been moved over. We've got our hole going through there that's all chamfered and lovely. We need to add 3 more cable glands down this wall here so that we can get this switch mounted onto the wall. This is our emergency navigation 12 volt power switch. So we have 2 forms of redundancy with our Victron DC-DC converters, so 24 to 12 volt converters. They run both of them simultaneously, so if one dies you don't even notice, but the other one backs up. Basically it's already taken care of. If they both fail, then this is a switch that goes from running off DC converters across to the battery on the genset, and that's going to be mounted over on this side so that if we're up here navigating and it all fails, we don't have to climb under the floorboards and fart around with anything. We can just race down here and flick it across onto the emergency, and then we're back up and running with 12 volt power in the bridge again. So we need to make a plastic isolator or some sort of like non-conductive isolator that isolates the AC away from the DC. DC is going to be up here. We thought a lot of it was going to be in that box, but because we're running out of room, we are going to migrate and have a DIN rail up here so that we can put a lot of our DC breakers. So you can see it's almost entirely solar, so this much is solar, I believe. Then we've got a DC converter, battery protect, DC-DC and DC-DC. That's the 24 volt to 12 volt DC-DCs. So that whole lot there is going to be mounted up here, and then over the back we're actually going to be putting a lot of blue Victron boxes in the back of this cupboard so that we can get rid of them out of the box over there and use the real estate up here. So in here we've got our 12 volt fuse board going in. You can see our cable trays running down. We've got one over the far side there that's going to be for DC coming down beside the AC but on a separate board. We've got cable trays running across the bottom and around that corner. If I can, there we go, around that corner there as well. So we've got plenty of paths for now. We'll add a few more in once we start adding more blue boxes. Alright, we've made some progress. We've got our 3 cable glands here. Damon is working on the solar, so this is this is the front solar, isn't it?
Correct. Yes,
yeah, so
solar, we're just going to extend it.
Yep, so coming off the roof, the cabin in front of the wheelhouse. This is coming through, it's going along, coming up into this area here. I'm starting work on the 70mm cables I've moved our zinc saver, what do you call it? It's an electrolysis prevention device. Galvanic isolator, that's the one. So I've moved that over, so we've got a bit more room. Our 70mm cable now is coming down. This is going to be a main positive feed coming up into this box for the DC stuff that's going to be mounted up in here. We're pretty much finished for today. We are still waiting on parts. We've got to do a heck of a clean up in here because there's chaos and tools and bits everywhere in here. But what we managed to get done, this is Damon's heading off for now a week or so. We managed to get 3 batteries in, all isolators and fuses in. We were waiting on cables to get the last 3 batteries in. This lot here is mostly wired up, probably 80% wired up. We've just got a few down this end to connect. The servo, that'll be one of the last to wire up. We haven't hooked that up yet. And the solar, we know where everything's going, but nothing's on the wall. So that's my job, is to put everything on the wall. Cable trays down the bottom, you can kind of see how everything's sitting down there. That's all neat and tidy, and that's all lovely. And we've got quite a few bits of homework to do. At the front end where the stairs are here, we've got this isolator that needs to be mounted down here, but we also want to clean up all of this area. You can see it's a bit chaotic and whatever. We're going to clean it up, make that tidy so we can mount that in there and get that done. I need to build the DIN rail that goes up here, so this DIN rail here needs to be mounted up here so that we can start going through and putting a lot of our Victron blue boxes and things into this cupboard here. And then in the engine room, we've got quite a bit that we still need to do on the genset in terms of like mounting isolator switch, batteries, all that sort of stuff. So we're doing a big clean up in here. Tools and parts are going everywhere. Yeah. Damon's organising himself to get all of his gear back into his truck because he's got a 2-hour drive to get back home. And he's going to come back in a week or two once we've got more of the parts have arrived that we need to carry on with. Hello and welcome back to a terribly polar cold Queensland morning where we're starting our work on Brupeg. It is 6 degrees.
You know, 6 degrees is not really cold.
So it's quite chilly and we're starting our work on Brupeg. We ran out of time. Last time I tried to tackle this being getting the genset exhaust welded. Now I need to test the water system here, so I need to basically get the genset up and running and get the coolant system up to pressure. So that's about 9 psi, something like that, roughly. And that will do a leak test for anything that I'm working on, just to confirm that everything I've got is good. Pretty sure it is, but we just need to do a double check. So need to get the exhaust done so that we can run the genset. First step, let's get the exhaust off. The exhaust is pretty straightforward to weld up. So essentially I've got joins that I need to weld here, 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 one here, and then 2 or 3 down that end. What I'm going to do is separate the exhaust here. I've got a zip tie up here and some duct tape on the far end holding it, just while I was sort of getting everything sized up. Get those 2 things down, take the pipe over onto the bench, we'll get that welded up, put the pipe back up again. Once that's done, then we can focus on getting this half welded. So I'll probably even try and weld this part while it's all together on the engine up here. I don't really need to take it off to do it. I can, you know, run my torch all the way around. I've got plenty of, nothing's going to get in the way. It should be pretty sweet. So let's crack on, get this half off and weld it up on the bench. Start with the duct tape. That's off. That can come down. Honkly dory, 1 exhaust pipe. Okay, I was wrong. Ignore the noise. I've got the fan running, so the whole room's really ventilated. I did take this piece off. I'm going to weld this joint here and this joint here on the bench, just because it's going to be easier, I think. And then this one here, I'm going to buff up. This is actually the reason I took it off. I'm going to buff this because it's got some black paint of some sort on here. I'm going to get rid of that so I get a nice area to weld to. So I'll strip that off. We'll get the piece that I just welded back up onto the roof. Weld this up, put that up, and then we'll do that final joint and we'll have an exhaust. Well, this is hopefully the last time that this exhaust is going to be put onto here. So I'm going to smear a bit of Mani seal on. Exhaust gasket cement. This stuff dries pretty hard. It dries with the heat of the exhaust. Just an extra layer. Don't actually need this. This gasket is enough. But let's just make sure we won't have an exhaust leak. Right. You can go there. And because this is an exhaust, you always want to put a little bit of anti-seize on your threads. Oh, this work is exhausting. It's best to always try and torque these sort of bolts up, and if you don't have a torque wrench, it's perfectly acceptable in the workshop to use a 1/2 inch socket like this, pull it sort of reasonably tight, and then make the click click noise yourself. Other mechanics will respect you for that. Click click. And once you've done everything up, that's when you realise that you've forgotten the cover. So you need to take the 2 bolts off, and this is obviously in the manual to do it exactly this way, and put this hot cover on. So again, you can untorque these bolts by doing click click in reverse. Hey, that would be great. Right, that's working out. But we do need to modify this. I'm not going to get this all the way around with this long sticky outie bit, so I need to change it for one of the short, stubby ones. I don't know what they're called. Let's crack on. Right, that's the top bit done. Let's see if we can get the other side. Easier said than done. Oh yeah, this is as comfortable as it looks. Are you kidding me? Right, after a bit of aerobatics, that weld is done. So I need to do the brackets that are going to hold everything up onto the roof. And then over here, I have done the slip joint. You can see we've basically got a joint with exhaust gasket go around it, a few slots cut into the top part of that pipe, and then a big hose clamp to clamp everything up, so that'll seal up. That's basically the same sort of system that we have up on the main exhaust. That works quite well on that. So we've just done exactly the same on this one. Now what I need to do is put a little bracket that goes from here across to this mount over there, because we need to obviously rubber mount that. We can't have this dangling around having no support. And with the magic of punches, I've made a little template so we can cut that out on stainless and weld it on. The cardboard template turned into stainless. And there we have the mount in place. All right, it's time to get another rubber mount. We'll put it up here, somewhere between this piece of pipe and the roof up here. Now remember, we can't just bolt that up there and then have some sort of loop up here, and essentially that would be pulling the rubber apart. We need to squash the rubber. So whatever we do has to be with this in compression. So I knew it was going to be a complicated geometry to solve that one at the top. This is my complicated geometry. So it looks relatively simple when you look at it like that, but the way that it works is coming around this side of the genset. We stick it up there like that, and then the exhaust is basically, when you push the exhaust up a bit, the exhaust is pressing down onto the rubber here, and then this piece at the bottom, which will get welded up the very top there, stops it from being able to go anywhere. Welded in, and that's it from the other side. So you can see the exhaust is pushing down in compression. There's a little bit of a twist there because the exhaust is always going to do that, but these mounts are capable of handling that. It's welded up here. It's got the little plate, so if we ever need to take this out, we can just unbolt it either side, give the exhaust a bit of a shunt, and this little rubber mount will come out. With that weld done, we've got an exhaust that basically is sealed right the way around, down across the water trap and then back up to the stack, all the way out to the muffler at the other end. The water is ready to go, so let's fire it up, see if we've got some water leaks, and we can hold some pressure in that water system and then do a bit of a longer term test rather than the few seconds that we've been able to run it up until now. Alright, glow plugs. PSI of oil pressure, charging straight away, everything seems to be running beautifully. So the plan is to get it up to operating temperature. You can tell when that happens because the top radiator hose up here, the rubber hose, becomes warm. Before that, the thermostat's closed and the engine just cycles the water or the coolant inside the block to get it up to temperature, and then once it is, it then starts opening that valve at the top up here in the thermostat housing. It's called the thermostat valve, and that's a wax valve that basically allows the temperature to regulate on its own. That's how engines control their temperature. So once the engine is up to operating temperature, it'll start pushing water through those keel cooling pipes and using that seawater cooling to basically help. It's not seawater cooling, it's passive cooling in the seawater with fresh water, because it's a closed loop circuit with those keel cooling pipes. To give you an idea of how smooth this engine runs, very, very slippery surface. You can see it's basically just sitting there. if there was a little bit of grip on that, it would actually stay there, but it's pretty amazingly smooth, this engine. Outside the engine room with the door closed, you can hear it running in there. Close the door, it's not even hoiked up tight yet, and it's completely easily livable in here at the moment. There's virtually no noise. Once you get further away from the genset, so up into the saloon or the wheelhouse, it just gets better and better. So easily, you can talk very quietly in here and everyone's going to be able to hear you. It just gets better as you go to the front of the boat, the wheelhouse, the kitchen. I mean, you practically can't even hear it in here. So Jess is able to just edit and you'd never even know that it's running. It's pretty cool. Let's go have a look at it outside. So at the back of the boat, we've got our hatch cover for our steering open. You can sort of see, I'll go out there in a second, but you can see the hatch is wide open, so plenty of noise can come out there. And then we've also got vents on either side of the boat, so the noise should come out everywhere. And it's pretty quiet out here. You can maintain a pretty easy conversation. All right, let's go have a look at the exhaust. So bear in mind that this thing has zero sound protection on it whatsoever, so we will be building a box around this. This thing comes with a box to make it quiet. However, it's the wrong type of box for the boat, so we couldn't use that, so we had to take that off. But we will be building one that encapsulates it more like a marine genset. So let's go have a gander at the exhaust as she's running. That's incredible. Like, it's so unbelievably quiet. Probably can't get any closer to the end of the exhaust, but this thing's just a gentle hum. Pretty quiet conversation. You could talk to someone sitting right next to you. It wouldn't really be an issue. Now we do need to extend this. We're going to lift this up. We're going to bring it up so that it sticks up above this part of the exhaust here, because we don't want this going all black from the diesel, that, you know, the emissions and stuff that come out of that genset. So we're going to be lifting it up and we're going to be putting a flapper on it. We only have a galvanized steel flapper and we want to get a stainless one, so we can cut the pipe. That's easy enough. The flapper is just like a hose clamp, kind of holds it on. So we're going to change the one that we've got for a stainless one, but for now the one that we've got will do. So with that genset running, we're now in a position where we can get Damon back onto the boat and start doing the commissioning process for the DC system once it's installed. We've still got quite a few jobs that Jess and I need to power through. I think there's about 18 jobs actually, quite a few, that we need to power through. So things like fitting cable tray and fuse blocks and switches, stuff like that, before Damon can then come through and start doing all the termination. So Jess and I have got probably 3-4 days of like full-on work to get everything done. But now that the genset, that's the biggest, hardest, most annoying part to do on that whole list, that's finished. The rest of it's all downhill. Back to the water test. It's up to temperature now. This is starting to get pretty warm. This is hot. So we're looking for any leaks coming out of any of the welds anywhere around. I can't see water anywhere. Check all the different ends. It's dry. The welds down here, they're all coming up dry. There's nothing coming out here. You'd see water on the ground. Like this. I found a leak. Look between those pipes. See the dribble coming out there, so something going on with this connection here with the hose plate, so I just need to have a go at that. There we go, looks like problem solved. Just wasn't tight enough. Right, I'm not a huge fan of running diesel engines with no load on it. This thing's revving basically at idle. It's 1500 RPM, but there's no load on it, so the rings won't be pushing into the bore. It's an engine with an hour runtime, so it's very low runtime. So we're going to switch it off. I think we're going to call that successful. I can't find any leaks. The exhaust and the water are both holding up. You beautiful little thing, you. So like the main engine, with this little genset, we're going to be using the test strips, the coolant test strips, to tell us if we've got our coolant level correct. So we use a concentrate, so we mix our own concentrate to basically do the coolant for this machine. Once we've got some runtime on it and we've cycled the coolant through the keel cooling pipes, you know, a heap of times, we'll do some test strips to make sure that we've got that correct, and then we'll top up if we need to add more. Exactly the same as what we do on the main engine, to make sure that our liners and our cylinders in the small engine are in top-notch order.